So we're going to prepare an LOI for this listing. It's just a listing that I found. Just looking on BizBuySell. Don't want to endorse any particular platform here, but they've got a lot of listings, so that's what I used. Alright, so this is a custom countertop fabricator and cabinet retailer. So who knows what the balance between those two things is. Probably something that you'd want to look at in diligence, actually. But they're asking a little under 2.5 million, showing an STE of a little over 700K, so not showing EBITDA. So they are showing SDE, which would include the owner's salary. That's often the biggest difference between SDE and EBITDA. So this is asking, what is that? Roughly 3.5, 3.6 SDE. Says that there is 5.4 in revenue. We've also got real estate involved. Okay. So real estate is owned and not included in the asking price. Awesome. We've got a little bit of FF&E. They're saying that there's 135,000 in inventory included. Question whether that's all the inventory on hand or all the inventory you need, but again, for purposes of drafting this LOI, this is all we have to go on. So this is our new template, updated to reflect the changes to the SOP. So we will say for this one, business like this, retailer, fabricator. So this is going to be an asset purchase. I don't see a compelling reason why this would be a stock purchase, so we'll write it as an asset purchase. Alright, so today is June 15th. I'm writing this then, so we'll just say that that's the date. And then Mr. Seller, which, if you sign the NDA, I suspect you would find out the seller's name and the seller's address, but this is just an exercise, so I'm not going to do that. Business address, okay. So, dear, this is what we do, right? We just come in, anything yellow, we're going to fill in, and then green are the footnotes. So we're doing that in changes, right? So read the instructions before we start. So everything yellow we're going to fill in. So dear Mr. Seller, between me, Williams, and then if you want to be do that, you can do that. Some people are concerned about not having an entity formed by the time you send an LOI. You don't have to, but if you want to let it know, you can just put language like that. Okay, so seller individual name, so Mr. Seller, and seller company name, which we don't have yet because of we haven't signed the NDA, so I don't actually know, but, and company name, right? You just fill that in exactly as it's presented to you. Alright, and it looks wonky, the formatting, because of all the footnotes, but I promise it'll go away, so, alright, so just business name, right, again, but the same thing. Alright, so we're purchasing substantially all of the assets. So we're actually not going to use any of these footnotes, right? So this footnote is changes we would make if it was a stock sale. So we're not doing those, so we'll delete that footnote. All right. Then the next one, if we're purchasing stock sale, the seller rollover. All right, we're not doing that, so we'll delete that one. And then we're purchasing, this is the same thing in a non-SBA transaction, so we're not doing that. right? So as we fill this in and delete things, right, it makes it cleaner. These footnotes will, as the footnotes get deleted, it gets shorter. All right, so we're going to come in, this is, I don't really, hard to know, but let's just get the calculator and see what this multiple is. So 24885 divided by 711, 53. All right, so they're asking for more or less a 3.5 STE multiple. All right, but that seems a little bit high to me. So again, I don't know this business. I'm just saying that for the purpose of the exercise, but I'm going to say, I'm going to offer, what does 3.2 look like? 2275. So we're going to go with that, and I'm going to not get into this. I'm just going to make it an even number. So I'm going to say 2.275. All right. And I'm going to use the classic SBA structure of 80-10-10, which means that 90% of the cash will go at close to the seller. So let's clear that. 2275. 0.9. All right, so the seller would get 2047 500 at closing. And then, all right, now we've got the footnotes. So here we go. All right, for the seller note, include the following terms. So I'm just going to pull this out. Just going to go up here. I don't know why the formatting did that. We'll fix that. All right. So what does that amount to? 2275 minus, or let's do times 0.1. There we go. So a 10% seller note for this offer. Say, call it 10% interest. All right. And then, let's see. So this language would have the note on full standby for 2 years. So I'm going to shorten this. Right? So this is no longer needed for SBA, or no longer eligible as an equity injection for the seller note. And then, so I'll just say 1 year, period of 1 year standby. So that's not needed for any sort of SBA purposes, but I'm writing that into my offer to help with cash flow. All right. So, and we leave the rest. All right, so I've written it. Actually, this is over. Let's do a shorter time period. Let's say 4 years. We would need to get clearance from the bank, from your lender, to be able to do that. So ideally you run an LOI past your lender before you send it. You can't always do that, I know, but ideally you would, to make sure you can do that. You can, as long as the DSCR works though. And let's come down here. So I'm writing this as if I will not need the seller note to count towards the equity injection. If I did, then the seller note would have to be on full standby for 10 years. All right, so that That would make this a much less competitive offer, and I'm already offering less than the asking price, so I'm going to be generous on the note. And okay, so we're not purchasing the real estate here. Right? They're not including it, and I don't want it because that would more than double the price. And you probably don't need it for a business like this, so that means we can delete these footnotes. And okay, well, that's a glitch in the template, and I'll fix that. That will not be there anymore by the time anyone sees this video. All right, and so purchase price is based on the business having achieved. And here we're just going to copy. Right. Seller discretionary earnings. Of 711.53. We're just using exactly the numbers, and I think it's probably 2024. But we don't know that, and I'm going to add here, right, that it's. I'm going to add what the multiple is as a. Equating to a 3.2 XSTE multiple. Alright, so that's helpful. Alright, so I'll go ahead and add that. I'll probably add a little bit of an extra note to that footnote too. Alright, so and then we have the purchase price assumes a normalized level of net working capital, which will be, so I'm not going to include a number here. This will include all inventory on hand, which seller estimates to be about $135,000 at valued at landed cost. And that is this footnote. So we don't need cash to be part of the working capital here. You very rarely will, but sometimes it's possible you would. All right, so inventory, here we go. Alright, so that's basically what I've added. I just typed it out instead, so we'll do that. Alright, we'll fix that. Seeing a few things in the template, but that's okay. I don't know if they're going to have long-term projects or not, but I'm going to add this anyway because it could. I'll be more specific here. Since it's a fabricator, there could be work in progress, so we'll just include language about it. And then there's not going to be the prepaid or deferred revenue. So, all right. So now we just scroll down until we hit the next footnote. All right, here we go. It's a new, so key employees. Don't think that we have key employees, but we do have real estate, right, that the seller owns, so we'll add that to this list. And we'll come in and fix the formatting. Not sure why the formatting does that. I really don't know. And then since the seller owns the real estate, it'll be the seller. Alright, and then that footnote is handled. So now we go. Alright, so I'm going to say this is probably not the most complicated business, so I'll say 3 months. Months of transition services. And then we'll add a note. No additional, for no additional compensation. Because we want to be clear if we're going to pay extra or not. Okay, so we've got another footnote here. It says 90 days is common for initial draft, so that's what I'll do. And that's that footnote. All right. So this is a unique situation because this business is actually in Delaware, so it will definitely be Delaware. Copy and paste this into here. All right, so I have not signed an NDA for this one because I've not looked at the listing, but so I will just copy and paste this language. Instead, if you had signed an NDA, you would fill in the date, but I haven't, so here we go. And then, all right, we're not going to do anything fancy with expenses or fees. And we'll give them, say I'm going to send this 5 EST on, we'll say, I'm doing this on a Sunday, but we'll say I'm going to send it tomorrow on a Monday, so we'll give them till Friday. So June 20th. June 20th, 2025. And we keep scrolling, and here we go. All right, so sign the LOI before you send it. And then, so I haven't, so I would just do this as my own name, because I haven't formed an acquisition entity. And since I haven't formed an acquisition entity, I would delete these 2 lines because you don't need them. And then this would be Mr. Seller. And we're ready to go. All right, and then I would sign this and it would be ready to send. So then the last thing we do is we come in and delete this first page. And boom, there you go. So what started as kind of a weird looking document is now, it's 3.5 pages plus a signature page for an LOI. So there you go.